That's how the day's gonna start, eh? If you guys could see what's happening right now, there's like so little room between the actual head bolt and the rocker stud. There's literally not even enough room for a socket in there. This is the problem I had last time. And I thought maybe with this little bit thinner socket that it would kind of fix itself. But I thought maybe I just didn't have the right tools last time or something. But what a stupid design. You literally can't even get the actual socket onto the head stud. Like, there's another problem why I know the last time I did this too, I couldn't torque them down, which is going to be a problem here again, because you can't get a socket on there. Like, especially this is just a 3/8 socket, and if you try to get a 1/2 inch socket on there, it's definitely not going. So just try to snug it up the best I can, and then I'll grab a wrench, I guess. Try to just snug it down with the wrench a little bit, but maybe somebody has a better solution for this than I do. Even one of these wrenches, which is like probably half the thickness, I'm sure this is just a Chinese wrench here, it's like half the thickness in this area, and I bet you this thing won't even go on there, and it's a 12 point. So I might have to snug them down with the open end or something. Yeah, see, it won't even. So that was one of the reasons I was not going to keep these heads, and I had not planned on leaving these on here, but I guess it's going to have to do. What we got. The green truck was a budget truck, and that one was designed to be a budget truck. We were just trying to show people what you could do on a super small budget. I haven't really talked about it much there, but I paid like $1,500 for that truck there. We call it the medium one Iridium truck because that was the paint code for 1975 and 1976 there. It's actually pretty hard to come by color, to be honest. When I found that truck, we actually found that truck up in Alberta, Canada, and I had the exact same truck like that. That was my son's. I had the same exact truck there. It was actually a twin to mine, so his is a 76 and mine's a 75. But that was the very first truck I ever owned, and it got T-boned at one point there when I was like 16. Didn't have it very long, but I just always wanted one again, and I literally have never seen another one. So when I saw that one, I just happened to be driving through a back alley one day, and I went and banged on the guy's door there, and he said he had just started thinking about selling it. So he had brought it actually originally from Saskatchewan, and it was his dad's truck. And when they sold the farm, it was like his dad's daily driver, basically, like kind of their nice going to town truck and stuff like that. And yeah, they ended up the he bought it from his dad's auction sale actually, and that truck went to Alberta in 2004, and his son had planned to fix it up and just basically flip it to make some money, and he never did anything with it, and that's where it's at. So when we kind of went banging on his door there, just kind of found the right time at the right place there. So then, yeah, we went and made a deal, and that was my son's first truck there. So his is a '76, but his is a little bit different trim package. His is like got quite a bit of chrome and stuff. It's got the chrome trim kind of behind the cab and stuff. His has a white roof, some stuff like that. But it was a one owner truck, 60,000 original miles on it. It was pretty decent when we got it. And then after we moved from Canada down to the US, we left the truck with my dad. And I got a couple little bumps and bruises along the way, but still wasn't in too bad a shape. And then yeah, we brought it down to Iowa. And after it's just been here in Iowa for a winter pretty much, it didn't even get driven in the winter. I think it was all washed and clean and stuff, but just winter and the spring and stuff here, man, I don't know if it's just like the humidity or whatever the deal is, but man, Iowa just eats trucks. I know it's a lot to do with the north and stuff here and whatever, but yeah, it's crazy. So that truck's due for a paint job, but yeah, and then after he had his there, he was constantly always looking for other trucks, so he bought another, I forget what his last truck was there, he just bought one for a daily driver. It was a 79 Chev, I believe, 79 or 78, and I actually had found that truck for him and his brother to fix up and basically have something that they could just tinker around with, learn something on, and then maybe make some money afterwards. And Noah took more of an interest in it, older son than the younger son there, so he ended up buying it from his brother. We got it running and stuff, and he drove it quite a bit there, and he drove it for quite a while, and he eventually ended up selling it and made a few bucks on it. And so I wanted him to have a more reliable truck, so he bought a 1998 Chev 3/4 ton. It's just a single cab gas 350 truck. It's got quite a few miles on it, but he's been learning quite a bit on that. He put new rocker panels and stuff in it now, and this and that, and he used the money from his other square body truck to do that. So yeah, when he was searching around after he sold his truck, after he had sold his truck there, he was always kind of searching for another square body because he already had his green one, but he's always searching for something, just like me, I guess. And he found this green 75 there that me and him just built, and really, to be honest, I bought it sight unseen. I paid $1,500 and I hadn't seen it. I knew it was like a little rough around the edges and stuff there, but nothing I was super worried about. Like, to be honest, I just bought it with the intent of pretty much just banging it around. I was just gonna take it out, do some burnouts, take it uptown for ice cream with the kids or something like that, and that was pretty much it. So I had really no intentions of doing much else with it. And then after he told us before we bought it, but he said that the gas tank was leaking on it. So I thought, well, that's no big deal. I thought it would probably hold half a tank of gas before it actually, maybe would leak out or whatever. Well, turned out that it would only hold like maybe a gallon of gas, maybe 2 gallons the most. And so you could only put a little bit of gas in it. We take it for a little cruise, bag it around a bit, and then that was it. And so it only got driven a couple times around down the back roads here, a couple little burnouts and stuff, and yeah, that was kind of it. And so we were like, well, I guess we're gonna have to change this gas tank now. So that was kind of how this whole project started there. I thought, well, the fender's a little bit beat up and stuff, and so one day when I was traveling around, I found a guy selling 2 brand new fenders that got dinged up a bit and shipping, and I thought, well, the rest of the truck's so bad, it's gonna already look better, and I thought, well, maybe I can just get some color matching paint, and then get some color matching paint and just paint it to match, and it'll look way better. Well, then I started looking, and things just kind of spiraled there. It was like, well, now the passenger door is pretty dented, and the box has got rust holes, and the floor of the box had rust holes and stuff, and so I just kind of started accumulating parts, and I found a truck box that a guy just wanted to get rid of, and it looked pretty much rust free and stuff, and I just happened to find it in my travels there, and the guy said you can come have it for free, so I paid his roommate $50 to come and help me load that thing onto my trailer there. So we brought it back, and I was planning on using that. So I don't know, we're just kind of learning some body work there and stuff, and we started working on it, and it seemed like it was pretty decent, but there was a pretty big dent in the passenger side, I guess it was. And so, anyways, long story short, it just ended up being too big of a dent to Bondo and stuff. So I found another box there that actually had two good sides on it, and so I ended up buying that and taking the one good side and putting onto that box, and I sold the other box back, and I think I sold it for like $400 or $500, $500 I think, with a couple other little parts that were just extra parts that I had. So made some money back from that, so I was already ahead of the game a little bit there, and then yeah, after I did that, then it was like, okay, well now, now it's starting to be a little bit better of a truck here. It's like, well, I don't want to go crazy spending money on it because we're just learning on it too. So after we started kind of digging into it a little bit, we're like, oh man, like the floorboards are shot in it. And we kind of knew they were a little bit bad, and the same thing, I just thought, well, when I bought it, I'm like, I could just put a little patch in there, good enough to bag around. And I was like, okay. We pulled back the carpet, and the floors were shot on both sides, and it actually, the body mounts and everything were pretty much gone. And I was like, well, I don't know, like, where do we kind of stop with this thing, you know? And then lo and behold, you check Amazon, and down in the US here, just everything's just way cheaper. So I think I found a pair of I bought one rocker and a set of floor pans, and it was like $80, I believe it was, or something along the lines of that. So I thought, okay, well, whatever, we don't know what we're doing, but how much worse could it be than two giant holes in the floor and a rocker panel that's totally shot? So we ended up cutting out the rocker panel, and made a couple mistakes there we kind of learned from. It was actually kind of interesting, kind of as you learn there pretty quick, you know. But so I only cut back what was bad, and we kind of went over top the old one, and you could see at one point it already had been replaced. So ended up putting it over top, and then because of that, of course, it wasn't down as low. We thought it wouldn't really make that big of a difference. We tried to bend it down, but it kind of did make a little bit of a difference there. So everything wasn't 100% perfect there. And then once we took the box out, we realized how bad the cab corners were there and stuff. And then really the other side needed a rocker too, which wouldn't have been that big of a deal. But at that point, we had already put carpet and the floors and everything into it, and so I just decided, you know, we only had a little bit of time because we're getting moved here, and we wanted to get it together. So I said, you know what, it's a budget truck. I don't want to spend a bunch of money on paint and things like that. And so I had already found a color, because I was contemplating buying the factory color, but the factory color paint was for a single stage was about $550, which isn't really that bad, you know, if you're gonna build like a nicer truck or whatever. But I thought, well, I don't really want to spend that much money on a truck that I know is like trying to keep it low budget, just to kind of show people, right, what you can kind of do, what a kid in high school could do if they use their imagination a little bit and stuff. So yeah, just kind of kept it with the paint that I found from Summit, and my son talked me into painting the roof white, which I was in agreement. But so I think we had about $120 into the Summit Racing paint there, something like that. And it was just the closest one that I thought I could find that was basically a color that was like close to the factory color. And then after I started looking on the Summit site there's people that have posted pictures of with that paint. And so one guy had painted a Mustang with it. And the Mustang actually would start like overlaying pictures with the factory kind of paint color, and it looked fairly close, like maybe a little bit darker, but close. And then the day before we were going to paint the truck, I looked at the same color paint, but on the quartz, and somebody had painted their under bay of their, I think it was a Mopar or something like that, with this color, and man, it was just like neon green, and me and my son were like, wow, this thing is gonna be pretty green. But I said, you know what? We've got the paint. What's the worst case scenario? We'll paint it again later or whatever, right? Or just deal with it. So we ended up trying to figure out the whole contraption. We bought a used inflatable paint booth there. It was actually a brand new paint booth. The guy accidentally ordered two when he ordered them. So yeah, ended up blowing that thing up and figuring that all out, and just figuring out, had got a brand new paint gun there for Christmas. It's a pretty neat deal actually. It's a 3M gun where it's got a removable tip, and it's got these removable, basically disposable, I should say, paint cups in it. And what I really like about that is for a guy that, like me, that doesn't necessarily know how to clean them perfectly and things like that, that you just throw the tip out and you throw the gun out and you just make sure the actual, basically the stainless part of the gun is clean, which is simple. And that's it. You just throw the tip out every time if you want to. You can reuse them. They say up to 3 times, maybe more. I think 3M says a little bit more than that, but for the price of them and the amount of painting we do, it's just something I thought would be a pretty good gun. So didn't really know anything about it, but by fluke there, it ended up working pretty unreal. So we painted the roof in it and stuff in the booth, and the one thing about that particular booth is it didn't seem like the volume of air going out was quite enough, but it ended up turning out pretty good in the end there. We haven't wet sanded or anything. We had to slap it back together super fast for this move, but yeah, we just threw a coat on it so it wasn't sitting in primer and stuff, and we ended up finding a bunch of little ripples in the box and stuff that just got missed or whatever. Basically, we're just learning. So, but yeah, it was a pretty fun little project and stuff, and then we hadn't really driven it anywhere, so we went to town the first night for ice cream there, and took it for a little cruise, and my son brought his 76 and stuff, and we were just kind of goofing around to see what they would do and stuff, and both of our trucks are so loud because both the mufflers are gone off of them and stuff, just rusted off over the years or whatever, and we kind of just had a little go from a dig there, and man, it was like, couldn't hear my truck moving, and he was pulling away from me at first there, and then I realized it's got no tack and the speedometer doesn't work, so realizing that it's just annihilating the tires, and it lays like from a dig, like probably 500 to 1,000 feet of rubber, like crazy. So my truck's got, don't know exactly, I don't think it has much done to it, but it's definitely a GM crate engine, so what I assume to be like a 250 horse version probably or something like that, but definitely wakes the truck up. Like his truck has like a smaller mid-70s motor, so it's pretty weak compared to this one or whatever. It's a pretty big dog, so at some point is going to get an engine upgrade, but I'm not sure about mine yet. But yeah, so that's kind of what the deal was with that, and I think all said and done into that truck, I don't know if I would have $2,500. I would be surprised, probably very close. We ended up buying a used set of seats out of a 2008 to 18, 2008 to 13 Silverado. They were used. They had a little tear in the driver's seat and stuff, but I paid like $80 for them. And the internet said that's impossible to make them fit in there, and we cut down the brackets and hacked a few things up and slapped them in there. Welded a couple little angles onto them, and I wouldn't say it was 100% the best fit, but it was a good $80 fit. So yeah, that truck's up and running now. And then took my son's truck to town last night because that's the only one we haven't moved yet, and ended up like it's acting up like it's got some sort of ignition problem there, so I have to figure that out. there's some stupid design, like, man, it is unreal. It's a center bolt valve cover design. I really don't know if there's like some way around this. Maybe a guy could like drill and tap for like the outside holes or something along the lines of that, but this is just stupid. Like, I don't know if you can see in the video there, but this is like the pedestal for the center bolt valve cover there, and you can't get the rocker out without taking that out, and where this actual stand is, like, to get those lined up perfectly with the bolt holes and the valve cover, like, the whole thing is just absolutely ridiculous. So this is what's happening right now. I'm trying to get this rocker off of here, and seems like it's not gonna work with me here. So I'm gonna try to get a Allen key and see if I can get that poly lock off there first, I guess. Go from there, I guess. What a design. I don't really need to actually take them out. I'm only trying to take them out so I can put some thread lock on them. Not torquing them down very good, and I'm not saying that I don't know. I'm not trusting exactly if they're gonna stay in there very good or not, so I'm just gonna put some blue Loctite on them. Stupid Designs 101 here. Holy cow. Seems to be lacking in the 5/8 wrench department here. So I actually don't have to get them all the way out to put the thread lock on them, so it's not really that big of a deal. You know, if the thread's a little bit here and put it back on. Is that the right way? Somebody will tell me I'm probably wrong, but I'm wrong about a lot of things I do, so wouldn't be the first time. Wow, what a great design, guys. Trick Flow, send me a new set of heads so I don't have to deal with these G1 twisted wedge heads anymore. This is brutal. We're on the right track with what they were trying to do, but man, the execution on this was not very good. And this car has been through a lot of different combos over the years. Like, it, how this car started was, I had bought it. I just always wanted a Camaro. I think I got my income tax refund one year there, and couldn't find a second gen for anything that I could afford. Of course, right before that, they were all over the place, and you find them, I guess, probably everybody got their tax refund back or whatever the deal was that year, but and then couldn't find another one, so ended up looking for one, and I'm assuming my friend Phil told me. I don't remember exactly how I found it, but so my friend Phil actually had this car, and he's the one that actually threw the V8 in it. and he did some trading to another guy that we were friends with there. I forget what exactly they traded. I think he traded, I don't even remember anymore, but anyways, he ended up trading him for this car. So I don't remember, I think it was, yeah, it was actually running. It was running and driving when I got it. It had a 305 out of a IROC Camaro. It was a 305 high output. Ran pretty good. It was actually a pretty fun car there back then. It had a turbo 200 transmission in it, which is kind of funny, but I don't really know even how that came to be, why that transmission ended up in here. But yeah, that was kind of, man, what a dumb design. It's kind of what I was looking for. I said at the time I would have preferred probably an IROC or something like that, but just never had much money back then. So the money I did have, I just like to have some fun with. And so ended up picking it up in Lloydminster there, and I think I drove it back. Had it for maybe 4 hours or something, and I think how it actually got going there was another friend of mine, Adam. He kind of started going to the racetrack, and he was talking about this 86 442 that he had for the longest time there, and pretty much he was like, oh, I'm gonna get this thing running here this weekend and stuff and this and that. And so that car, we were just talking about it. Another friend of ours had this 86 Trans Am. He actually still has the car, so does Adam. But yeah, we were just kind of going back and forth about it and stuff, and I had another Trans Am at that time, but I couldn't get it safetied in Saskatchewan. That was a whole nother story, but so we ended up picking this one up in the same day that I got this one back to Saskatoon. Adam had got his going, and we just went out goofing around. I was just bagging it around a little bit and stuff or whatever, and I remembered somebody had told me one time there that you could rev those to 6,000, and obviously I was wrong because that motor only lasted about 4 hours. So could have been that. Maybe the tack was wrong a little bit too or whatever. Who knows? But just driving it like I stole it kind of thing. So then ended up getting a motor from a junkyard, 350 or whatever, swapped it out, and then that thing was just pouring freaking smoke out so bad. And then it was like the same thing. I think I swapped it 3 times there, and I've actually got pictures of one point there. I swapped it in my dad's garage. A few times we swapped it in my friend's workshop. And then yeah, ended up just the last motor there was like, they kept giving me like, because it was just a junkyard motor, so they'd give me another one, and every one I would pull out was just bad. And I had to pull it out myself, so then I had a house in the garage, and was getting evicted because they were selling the house, so ended up just deciding that there's a place in Lloydminster there that was an engine shop or whatever there, and I found this 400 motor for pretty cheap. It was pretty much a bad motor, but it just needed a rebuild or whatever, so. And then got Adam to take it back to Lloyd with him when he was going, and they quoted me I think like $800 at that time, which is funny to think that, but $800 to fully rebuild and assemble it. And then I guess they ended up having to do a little more than they thought, and I was just like so tight on money, and so we ended up basically rebuilding it ourselves. They did the machine work, we assembled it ourselves, so it was like a 20 over, which is like funny because it's still the same 20 over engine there. But yeah, that's how it ended up with this 400 in it.
Do you have a tote without a lid in here?
I don't have any of those clear totes.
Oh, okay.
No.
I was joking.
I think I'm gonna have to take these These valve cover studs out of here because I cannot get the rocker off to torque it down enough. I can't even get a wrench on it. So yeah, we ended up, I didn't know what I was doing with the engine and stuff like that, and I was working at a place in Saskatoon called A1 Tire, I believe it was, and there was a guy there, and there was only one guy that was actually, and he wasn't even I don't even think he was a journeyman mechanic. I think he was just if I remember right, I think he was just an apprentice. I don't even remember. I don't know exactly sure how that worked because we were an actual mechanic shop there. And anyways, I ended up asking him if he knows how to rebuild motors and stuff, and he's like, well, he's gonna have a general idea, but not exactly, but he's like, I got to adjust a bit, so I'm like, well, okay, you mind helping us like put this thing together? So he came over one night and just basically showed us the basic things, what to do and stuff, and yeah, me and Adam and I think Trevor was there, and we ended up just kind of winging it and figuring it out and stuff, and threw it together. It had 20 over hyper-detected pistons. I put a Extreme Energy 274 cam in it, stock crank, stock rods. Those flat top pistons with 2 valve reliefs. I think we figured it was about 10 to 1 compression. So I think it was a little less at first because it had like 624 heads, which is like basically an 882, but they flow a tiny bit better in the exhaust. But that was it. Slapped it back together with even the cast iron intake and stuff on it and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, it ran, but man, it was a turd. So just slowly kind of kept working at it and stuff there. And it's funny to think, like, I think the very first pass I ever made with this motor was, I actually think, if I remember right, I think it was running 19-second passes there, but it still had like the carb that came with the motor that I bought and stuff, and it was just bad all over, so it just didn't run very good and stuff. And so it was funny, for a lot of years this car just had a lot of like people's spare parts. As they upgraded, I would just buy them for cheap and stuff because that's what I could afford. And I remember one of the biggest things there was Trevor upgraded. I think he had changed to something along the lines of maybe like a Demon or something carb there, so that I ended up buying that from him, and that made a huge difference actually. So that was one of the big ones. So it went from like I said, I think around like 19s, and then it went down into like probably like mid 16s, somewhere like that. And then I ended up putting an intake on it, and just the intake with that carb there, it went down, and it was running pretty much, from what I remember, around like super low 15s, like about 15.3, maybe a 15.2, something like that. I think I actually have all the time slips still from every pass I've ever made somewhere here. My store, I'd love to look back at them, but yeah, it was fun. It was fun just seeing like these drastic changes and stuff. And then I remember it just wouldn't go any faster, and I didn't know how to make it go any faster. And it was just kind of like, okay, well, we're running cast iron manifold jet and stuff, and the stock exhaust and all that stuff, and installing and taking that stuff off every time we were like working on the motor and stuff. Man, what a nightmare that was. But we just did it because it's what we had to work with. So then when I ended up trying to figure out how to go faster, well, of course the next thing is headers, right? So I ended up finding a set of long tubes, which meant no exhaust, and it was long tubes with 1 5/8. It was just a cheap header too. I don't even remember where I got them from. It might have been another set from someone else. Don't have. But yeah, so I actually think, if I remember right, I might have got them from this other Adam friend of ours that had this third gen Camaro as well. I don't remember exactly, but we threw those on and it was just, we were at the racetrack every weekend and stuff. And so the very first pass out there, I was lining up against this other Adam friend of mine there, and he had a Jeep and he ended up throwing just a small little shot of nitrous on it there. It was a 5.9 Jeep Grand Cherokee with it was like whatever they were in those years. It was 98 was the only year they made them, but I think it was like mid 200s horsepower. And he took the hood off and sprayed nitrous, and I made the very first pass with those headers on it. And I remember telling him, like, man, this thing feels way faster. And he's like, I don't think it would pick up that much. I said, I think it's going to run a mid 14. He's like, there's no way. So yeah, we ended up lining up first pass together there and stuff. And I think that pass, he ran a 14.6 and I ran a 14.4, but he got out of me a little bit, so he was ahead of me. And then, yeah, it was funny. I remember passing him on the line and looking over and him just giving me like the thumbs up. I was like, man, that was like picked up a lot. This one, back then that was pretty drastic moves and stuff. So that was fun. All right, trick flow. This is the kind of stuff that takes forever. Literally can't even get in there with it. Getting in there with an Allen key to get these out of here. So I don't know if that's gonna work or not. Let's see if we can get it tight enough. Another one of these just like dumb designs, but I know they were trying things and stuff, and maybe this was the best that they thought they could come up with engineering back then. But I know Trick will make some pretty good stuff, and I think, like you said, the head design and everything else, I think everything was actually like, they were on the right track, and they had something figured out here, but it was just, they needed to spend a little more time on their R&R here, I think, to actually get this stuff sorted out so it works better. Nobody should have to spend hours and hours and hours screwing around trying to like tighten up head studs and stuff like that. Not ideal here. Okay. So I know that pass there, like those days I was running, I had A1 tire was like basically the guy's brother owned the A1 tire that I was working for A1 Lube there. And he ended up, what was the deal there? Yeah, he ended up having, I guess, they had a lot of just old stock tires and stuff, so they would just sell them out. And so I ended up buying some like Bias-Ply tires that were like old tires. Like I bet you honestly, they were probably 20 years old when I bought them, but they were bigger and it did help a little bit and stuff, but again, it was just kind of what I could afford at the time, so just always kind of working on a budget and stuff with this car, and as you can see, it's still not like amazing yet, but probably start caring about it at some point, actually do something useful with it, but it's been a fun car. So I threw those on there. I think that was one of the biggest things that was holding me back, because I seem to recall that this car like was always running like a 2.2, 2.3, 2.4, 60 foot. 2.2 was probably like the best day ever or whatever, and it just didn't get out enough. So at some point there, it had. Oh, I know what it was. It had. This turbo 200 transmission, and it actually worked really good. I think it was actually the fastest with that transmission there, because they take a lot less power to run. And so the problem with that was it wouldn't go into park, because whoever locks it into park on those transmissions was broken. So every time I go to the racetrack, I'd have to like put a block of wood behind the tire for them to check it and stuff. And it was always on the hill, so I'd try to roll backwards, and I knew eventually they were gonna probably give me grief about that. So I ended up putting a turbo 350 in it. And I went to Trans Torque there and got like a restalled factory size converter. It was supposed to stall like 20 I don't know, remember 2,400 I think or something, which was a little bigger than the stock, but whatever, still wasn't enough. And then yeah, I ended up getting some Mickey Thompson tires for it there. And then as soon as I did that, it was pretty much always a 13-second car after that. It was like, it would run pretty much 13.9, 14.0 with like that setup. And then as soon as you uncork the exhaust, because I ended up going back to a shorty header just because it was like right against the fuel lines and stuff. It just wasn't a good scenario. So I went back to a shorty header. Yeah, it would run like 13.9, 14.0 all the time. And then as soon as you'd uncork the headers there, it would literally pick up like just about a full second. Like that, this thing would run 13.0 all day long, every single day. Like and it would not go any faster than that. I think 107, 108 mile an hour was like the fastest. There's lots that were slower, like 103, 104 kind of thing, but just would not go any faster, and it has never gotten any faster than that. The last pass out I had with this motor, it was on a pass, the very first pass out there with it. It had the best 60 foot that it ever had, and I think the best 8th mile it had ever had, and then it just fell on its face and laid over. And I forget exactly what happened there. I think the first pass it broke the torque arm, which is like very unusual, like especially at that power level. And yeah, broke the torque arm and ended up after I broke the torque arm there, again, this is kind of funny, but I don't know why, for some reason I had a weird feeling I should just bring some parts, and I had a torque arm laying around for this car, and I just threw it in the box of my truck because we towed it up to the track that time. And I just happened to have a spare torque arm, so we ended up changing over the torque arm and stuff. And then just from there, it was just nothing was really going right that day there. We just didn't have the time, right? I think we got it running like 4 o'clock the night before or something, and I just wanted to make some passes because I just like racing. It's just fun. So ended up trying to make some passes and stuff there, and it just kept getting slower and slower. And what was the deal there? The rocker arms were like jumping off, and I don't know. I'm the last thing I'm very good at is valve train geometry and stuff like that, and I think that was what was going on there. Was the push rod lengths, I think maybe were too short. Not exactly sure. Seemed like when we lashed them up, it seemed at that time like it was okay, but obviously there was something going on. So yeah, that was kind of the end of it there. I think it maybe rattled off like a 13.1 or something there, but like it was rolling that first pass there, man. I was pretty excited, and then it just ended up whatever happened there with that torque arm. I think it actually broke the torque arm, and it ended up like slamming into the drive shaft there. It didn't break anything, but it just broke the torque arm. So then I switched the torque arm there, we got it running again, and then it was just not a whole lot good happening. And this, I had just put a 850 double pumper carb on it there, so I'm pretty sure it has big jets in it that are like probably too much for, well, at least probably it was too much for the motor when it's not running good either. So I can't really even remember what kind of jet's running anymore, but just a lot of little things like that, and we just never had a chance to dial it in, and then that was it. We ended up moving, and I didn't think about passing out a province inspection, so needed some money for a house down payment, and decided it was time to sell it. So that was how I ended up getting rid of it, but just kind of always kept a guy's number and stuff, and wasn't too long ago here. I was talking to my wife, and I said, wonder whatever happened with my car there. I think the guy still got it, and we were going back to that area actually, and she's like, why don't you try to buy it back? And I said, you don't care? And she said, no. She said, try it. She's like, why not? So I messaged the guy, and I offered him basically what I paid for it back, and then when we got there, and had all these issues and it got full of mice from sitting in the field and all this stuff. I said, like, I'm not paying you that. Like, I want the car back, but I don't need the car back. And it's like, I could probably start with a way better platform, to be honest. Like, so if you want to get rid of it, I'll give you, I don't even remember what I paid him for it, but it was a lot less than when I was originally going to pay him for it. And so, yeah, that's what kind of happened there. Well, that's good. So you always want broken parts right before you install them. Just gonna throw some mice. So the comp rockers are like supposed to be this special rocker for this valve train geometry problem that these had because of that 13-degree angled valve that they have from how they were built there and stuff. So yeah, I guess kind of see, look like that one might have been upside down. Well, maybe not. Yeah, but so that's supposed to solve the problem. So I don't know. Like I said, we never had it running long enough to know. Don't even know if I'm gonna get it right this time, but I'm gonna do my best here and try to figure some of this stuff out. Probably gonna have to do a little bit of research on setting the valve flash again because it has been a long time since I've messed around with any of this kind of stuff. And valve train was never my specialty here, so kind of get together and see what we can do here. I think it's gonna be better here. It's just I think a lot of it was those push rods were too short. So from what I've been told over the years is that it's better to err on the caution of having like a longer push rod than a shorter push rod. But not exactly sure what happened with the whole problem there with the get that one off too there. That one is staying on. Another one is the same problem. I know there were some guys that ran these cars, or that ran these heads, sorry, on like pretty mild combos. Like, to be honest, there were some guys that claimed, again, claims, whatever, but like, I just saw, actually I was reading them again the other day to kind of refresh my mind on these, and there was a guy with, I think he had like a 530 lift cam there, claiming he was running like 10-second passes with these heads. I know, seems maybe a little exaggerated, but I thought when I put this motor together, I was hoping for an 11-second pass, being that it's got way more converter than ever. It's like these heads went from the worst flowing GM heads to the best flow. Well, I mean, I shouldn't say best flowing, but these when they came out, they were supposed to be comparable. They actually flowed a little bit better even than like an AFR 195 at that time. So
that was like before they obviously came out with their Eliminator series and stuff like that. But you looked at like the flow charts and stuff. Supposedly that's what they said. So I don't know.
I was pretty disappointed that it wasn't running better there when I first got it out, because I thought this thing was going to be
A lot faster, and maybe it will be there yet. So
kind of see, but I think probably they could have used a little bit of work in the bowls and stuff, a little bit of cleanup, but for the most part,
like I said, I think these heads are underrated myself, but that is just my opinion. Alright, let's go around and make sure I don't miss any rocker studs because I'm yakking here. Trying to tell everybody my life story here. Deal with these absolutely ridiculously designed heads. Haven't actually checked back at the flow numbers recently, but I'm just probably going on a limb here and saying comparison to like probably some of, technology has come so far. These heads are probably like, maybe like mid to late 2000s, I believe is when they came out, so they're pretty old head now, but
I'd imagine if a person was just to put on like the cheapo set of the AFR heads now from like Summit Racing or something like that, you get into, I think they're about $1,100 for a set of heads, US, basically. To be honest, they're probably going to be a better head than this. I saw them on Engine Masters just doing some testing recently there, and they were saying like how nice the bowls are and everything like that, and they had a pretty mild setup there, and it made, I think it was getting close to 500 horse, which is for like not a huge cam and stuff. It's pretty good for $1,100 head. So I don't know, throw it back together and see. Like I said, I never really want to put these back together, but being that we're kind of in a time crunch, and I just want to kind of get it assembled back together and try to throw it back together, and we'll see if it actually is worthwhile or not. Probably gonna start learning some new words when I gotta put these Velcros back on here again. I don't even know how they expect you to seal them and stuff. Like, man, what a stupid design. So it does have a transmission dipstick, so I was like trying to figure out where there's a hose here that goes somewhere. I don't know exactly where it goes to. Not sure what they had going on there, but that wasn't my doing. Man, this thing leaks transmission fluid like crazy. Same with my green truck there. Both these pans must just freaking be like pouring oil out of the gasket or something, because this thing was like, which reminds me, it probably laid a lake in here already. Oh, maybe it's finally out of transmission fluid. It's not as bad as it was, but yeah. That's pretty bad. Alright. What is the next plan here? I guess we can probably put the lifters back in there now. They've been soaking for 2 days. I'm gonna put some gloves on so I don't get anything on them. Give those lifter boards a quick wipe first. I'm sure everybody will tell me I'm doing the wrong things here, and you're probably absolutely right. But sometimes learning takes more than once. So I just soak these things in some 1540 synthetic Rotella. I've never run synthetic in this thing, but I do run Rotella, and I've always run Rotella, so it's what I think helps these motors last. Let's see what we got here. The original 400 that we built for this thing, think we built that motor in 2001. And man, this thing got driven, and I drove it everywhere. When I'm saying, I mean, this was literally my daily driver for the longest time there. When I moved out of the city, I was living, it was getting close to 2 hours from the racetrack there, and I was off for the longest time. I was off every weekend there, and I was in the city racing. We'd take it out and we'd back road race, and we would take it to the track every weekend. At least every weekend that we could, and we just got driven, and then just around town and stuff there, just always just driving the frickin' wheels off of it. So that motor lasted until, oh man, I think it finally popped a hole in a piston. That was what I was talking about earlier, was when I was changing all these combos, I was just doing things to try to make it go faster. So it had like these 624 heads on it, which is like literally pretty much the worst flowing head GM had. Tried some different things over the years, ended up going to like a double hump, everyone, the double humps are the best, blah, 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 and they were like a 62cc chamber, I believe. And I think it just had too much compression with iron heads like that. Ended up burning a hole in the piston finally, and it never went any faster anyways, and I hated it because it didn't have power steering, and it was just, to me, it ran okay, but it wasn't, I don't know, it just didn't seem like it had like as much as it did before, I think because you couldn't really put any timing in it. And yeah, it was just, wasn't super happy with that combo at all there, so ended up blowing up the motor, and then it just sat around. But that motor probably had 200 passes on it, the drag strip, and I mean, every time I had this thing running, it was just getting driven. So that motor lasted a long, long time and it's still said the original short block here. Still got the same rods in it. I think I changed the crank. I had 2 cranks for some reason. I think we stripped the bolt out of the front crank at one time there for something happened. I don't remember exactly what. And I think I switched the crank, but I don't remember anymore. I'd have to look back. But yeah, I think when it finally came apart there, the motor was like that was probably around 2009, 2010 maybe. So pretty good run there. At least a solid probably 8 years of just getting driven hard.
Do you have any super glue?
I do not. Actually, maybe I do.